Hello friends and fashion lovers, welcome and welcome back. Thank you for clicking on this video, and I really missed you guys. I know I haven't been posting for a long time now. That's because life happened. Don't worry, we'll save the story for another day. Today I will be showing you how to make this puff sleeve baby dress. For this dress I used design organza. The camera didn't do this organza fabric justice, and I also use a plain organza under it to make it pop more. So I use 2 yards of each. You might use more or less depending on the age of the child. I also use satin fabric and a lining, which was a cotton lining. Right here I have a zipper and elastic. The elastic is for the puff sleeves. There'll be a link on how to draft a sleeve block and a basic bodice block in the description box. You can check that out. In case you have a basic bodice block, you would make few adjustments, same with the sleeve block. For this tutorial, I'm going to be drafting directly on my fabric. So to do that, I'm going to start by marking a zipper allowance. Please note that this piece of fabric I'm using is on fold. My zipper allowance is ½ inch. Making sure that my front part will be on fold, I'm just going to fold and start from the zipper allowance point to make my marking. So I just pin and secure it in place. So I'm going to first of all mark a guideline, which will also serve as a shoulder line. From there, I'm going to mark my bodice length plus seaming allowance. Please do well to include your seaming allowance. On the shoulder line, I'm going to mark half the shoulder width measurement. Then I come down a bit and mark seam. And then I'm marking half the armhole length of this child. On that chest line, I'm going to mark quarter of the round chest measurement, or should I say where the armhole depth stops. Quarter of the round chest measurement plus ease and seaming allowance. Please don't forget to add seaming allowance if you are drafting directly on your fabric. And then on the waistline, I'm going to mark same as the chest line, but you could mark quarter of the waist measurement plus ease and seam allowance. Then I'll just connect the point. I'm going to go up by the side by 1 inch. This is optional, and I'll connect and blend that side out. If you have a basic bodice, this is basically what you would have. So to your basic bodice, it's time to do the necessary adjustments. I'm going to start by adjusting the neckline. So mark your desired neck depth. So a guideline is used half the armhole length. You would really go wrong with that. Don't forget to add about ½ inch for a seam allowance. You could use 1 centimeter if you're working with centimeter. And this will be the neck depth. So I'm using this neck depth for both the back and the front. So just where you just mark your neck depth, you're going to go in by 3/4 inch to 1 inch. I used 1 inch and it gives a nice fitting along the across front. You need to do this to contour it a little bit so that by the time you are putting the sleeve, the off shoulder is going to sit very well on the child. Now connect to form your new armhole. So right here I'm basically done. I'm just going to cut out my fabric. But before cutting out, please take note, measure this neckline and keep it down. Twice this neckline is the length of the elastic you are going to use. So that being said, go ahead and cut out your bodice. Now before I go any further, I'm going to quickly grab my sleeve pattern and I'm going to work it along this bodice part. So just make sure that you match it. So wherever your bodice ends, mark it. Please note that there is a seaming allowance on my bodice that I cut out, so I'm just going to deduct a little bit from it. With that being said, just set aside the sleeve. Let's continue with the bodice. So I'm going to cut my lining piece with this and also use this bodice to cut organza. If this video is useful to you, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. it helps the video to do well, and it's an encouragement for me to make more videos. And if you're not yet subscribed to this channel, I'm begging you to please subscribe. Don't wait anymore. Thank you. So now that I'm done cutting my bodice piece, place it right side facing the front and the back and stitch it by the side. So join it together by the side. Now to the skirts. I didn't have much of a lining piece, so I'm going to make my skirt to be an airline. So I placed the skirt piece on fold right here, and at the top part here I'm going to mark quarter of the waist measurement that I had used for the bodice, including seaming allowance at the top. So I'm going to mark the skirt length, and make sure the skirt length you deduct 2 inches from your desired skirt length. So the skirt length is basically your desired dress length minus your bodice length. That's how you get the skirt length. So to that you deduct 2 inches. Please don't forget seaming allowance. Please, seaming allowance is important. I've marked my desired skirt length, so whatever I have on the waistline, I'm going to add 3 inches to that. So I use quarter of the waist plus 3 inches. You can do 5 depending on how flare you want it to be, but 3 inches was okay. You can go up by the hem by 1 inch. It's totally optional. Since it's a lining piece and it's been shortened by 2 inches, you really don't have to stress about that. So please note that I included a zipper allowance. Please don't forget a zipper allowance, it's important. That being said, I'm just going to cut out my skirts at this point, and then I'm going to place the skirt right side facing. I'm going to join it by the side. Optional, you can go ahead and add can to your skirt. Now to the satin part of my skirt, that's a male skirt. I'm going to place it on fold lengthwise, or should I say widthwise. So place it on fold once. So just to accommodate on my table, I'm placing it again. So we are going to mark the skirt radius. Please note that we are making an half circle skirt. So the skirt radius is basically the waist measurement plus zipper allowance divided by 3.14. So whatever you have as your radius, do well to mark it right here. And then the skirt length. We talked about how you get the skirt length. Your desired dress length minus bodice length gives you your skirt length, but you have to include your seaming allowance. It's important, seaming allowance. And then you take it across, whatever length that you have. After you have marked your radius, just move it across. And then the half circle skirt is ready to be cut out. So right now I'm going to set my circle skirt aside, and I'm going to work on the organza layer part of the skirt. I just went ahead and measured my desired skirt length plus seaming allowance. I didn't add much of a hemming allowance to it since I intend to overlock it, but if you are hemming the organza, you are roll hemming it, do well to add seaming allowance to it. That being done, I'm going to join it right side facing. I'm going to stitch it together, meaning that the whole length of this is going to be 4 yards because each of it is 2 yards. After which I'm going to gather to the size of the child I'm working on. I'm going to gather to the waist measurements that I'm working on. Then I'm repeating the same thing with the plain organza. And the plain organza is the same length with the design organza. After which I'm also going to gather that as well. Now to my sleeves. I just took one of those pieces of the organza and I fold it over. On the folded part, I measured 7 inches and placed my sleeve. So I just measured 7 inches and placed the sleeve at this point. And then at the down part, I measured 4 inches. I'm going to go ahead and place the sleeve right there and do the markings. So once again, at the down part, I'm just marking 4 inches down, like I said. And this 4 inches will include my elastic casing. I'm using 1/4 inch elastic, and it's going to give me a little bit of bubble for the sleeves. And then to the side of the sleeve, I decide to keep it straight. Please do well to add a little bit of seaming allowance if you haven't added. Now here is a little trick I like to do. I'm just going to follow the curve from the part that I noted down. Then the other part, don't forget, is going to be gathered with the elastic. So right up here, I'm going to make sure that I place about 1 inch or 3/4 of an inch, just enough to encase your elastic. I'm using 1/4 inch elastic, mind you. So I'm just going to make sure that I just have enough up there, while I have just a little bit of a seaming allowance to stitch it to my bodice. Let me just cut it out, you will get the whole point. Okay, here is what I mean. There is a demarcation between the part I'm stitching to the bodice and the part I am using for the elastic casing. So the part I'm using for the elastic casing, I have left a seaming allowance so I would make case, while the other part has a little bit of seaming allowance. I just hope you understand. That being said, I'm just going to join the side of the sleeve. I'm using French seam to join the side. So at the bottom of the sleeve, I'm going to make a casing for my elastic, both at the down part and at the upper part. So now the casing has been made for my elastic. How much elastic you are going to use? Firstly, at the down part, you want to make sure the elastic you are using is the round sleeve measurement of that child. So that is for the down part of the sleeve. When I made the casing for my elastic, I left an opening so I would be able to thread my elastic. So do well to make an opening and make sure the casing you are making is just enough for your elastic. After threading the elastic, I'm just going to stitch and secure that in place. Now to the upper part, the amount of elastic you need is twice the neck depth you had used. Remember when I told you to note the neck depth? So that is the amount of elastic you are using. That being said, I'm going to also thread my elastic at the upper part of the sleeve. So right here, I have threaded and secured my elastic in place, both for the upper and down part. So I'm going to stitch this on. But you can stitch on your lining piece first before attaching the sleeve. In case you're attaching the sleeve the way I am, please leave seaming allowance at the top for your lining piece. All the pieces are ready. So this is my gathered organza skirts, the designed layer and also the plain layer. I'm going to place it on my satin skirts right here and treat it as one piece, as you have seen. So now we have it as one piece. We are going to place the bodice right side facing and we are going to stitch it onto the bodice. To the lining piece, you are going to also place it right side facing and you are going to stitch the lining skirt to the lining bodice. So right here we have our dress, that's the bodice and the skirt joined together, giving us this lovely dress. So I'm going to stitch on the zipper. So I'm using an invisible zipper tooth, or should I say invisible zipper, however you want to call it. So I'm just going to place it and stitch it. So make sure that you place it and pin it in place. This zipper is so long, so I would have to shorten it. I'm not going to use the whole length. So when pinning your zipper in place, make sure to match the skirts and the bodice joining. It's important. So right here I've stitched my zipper on and of course that joining part matches very well. It's time to place the lining right side facing. You're going to stitch the lining onto the dress. Please make sure that you push your sleeve out of the way when you're stitching that armhole area. After stitching the lining on, I am going to close the center back of my dress and hem the dress. So right here I have stitched my lining on, and I've also secured the ends of my zipper. I've stitched the center back of my dress, so it's all coming in together. So it's just for me to finish off with the lining piece. I have also understitched the lining so that it lies quite nice and flat. So to finish the zipper area, so I'm just going to flip my lining like so, right side facing, and I'm going to stitch it. So I'm just going to place it right side facing, stitch it, not too close to the zipper tip, because you don't want this zipper to get stuck. Don't worry, the zipper will guide you when you're doing the stitching. After which I am going to stitch the center back of my lining, and I'm going to hem it as well. So that being done, the dress is ready. The zipper has been installed properly, the armhole area finished neatly, and even the lining piece of the skirt has been hemmed. So this is how to make this lovely puff sleeve dress. In case you don't have an overlocker to overlock your organza, you can roll hem it. Just hem it a little and roll it over and hem it a little. That's what I mean by roll hemming. Thank you for watching to this point, and see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.